Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. My name is James Jimmy Hills. I'm the host of Java with Jimmy, and you were tuned in this evening for a national conversation, Black Men in America. And before we begin that conversation, as it's going to bring up some heavy topics, we thought it was important, and he is no stranger to the Java Cafe, and actually part of the reason that we have a Java with Jimmy. We'll talk about that later. But I'd like to introduce to some and present to others. He is known as the Uncle in the Java Cafe, and we are going to introduce world-renowned photographer, author, friend, brother, grandfather, and supporter, none other in the person of our Thaddeus Miles. And I saw that laugh, so we're going to get a little bit of Black joy. I know I'm going to get it, but Uncle, good evening. Thank you for being here. We're going to do a presentation in a second, but I thought it was important to have you come in and just talk about how important it is that though we're going to talk about serious issues tonight, that at the end we do remember Black joy. Good evening.
Hey, good evening, nephew. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I'm a little nervous, but I'm doing well.
Yeah. You know, it's all good. You're gonna do well. You've been changing lives. You know, and as you know, I live a life rooted in optimism. I believe in myself, my gift, and what I have to offer the world. But as a Black man, that can be difficult. Not just day to day, month to month, but minute by minute, right? Because it's ever changing. Yes, and so I have to nourish that seed of joy that God gave me before I came into this world. So what I decided to do was to create this project called the Black Joy Project. As you know, Black joy has a lot of different meanings. For some, it's living radiantly and unapologetically in your skin, being fierce, and it's a true celebration of yourself, no matter what your personal or collective circumstances. For others, Black joy is dancing, singing, and laughing, even in the most challenging times. It's surrounding yourself with your culture and your people, as well as feeling safe at home, right? For me, accepting my Blackness without any obstruction while embracing Black joy and all its magnificence is not only captivating, but one of the most potent sources of power and beauty. I've come to believe that it's important for us to document every part of the Black experience as both a form of cultural appreciation and preservation. Black joy is my contribution to the collective narrative of power and influence of Black tradition in the world. It is my testimony to the strength and the resilience of our people. Most importantly, to me, it is a love letter to Black people to let you know I see you and I hear you. And Jimmy, and what you're doing every day is lifting that up. And you know, for me, again, the way that I'm able to roll my shoulders back, keep my chin up, and be able to lift my voice and find my powers through that joy, that and nourishing that seed of joy that God implanted in me before I came out into this world. To be able to fight that storm and that hail and that rain and that snow that's hitting us every day, and to be able to move forward. And I'm just happy that one of my favorite people, one of the best poets in Boston, you know, actually rose in one of the best videography groups that's out there, outside the box, and there's a few other folks to put together a Black Joy video, and it features some of my photography. And I just really wanted to step back and really sort of say Black joy, what it meant to me, but be able to listen to these brothers. But I really wanted to open it up with that video. It's a powerful statement of what it is. And from there, I will step away and listen. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. Thanks for the opportunity to share a little bit of Black joy.
Uncle, I really thank you. I appreciate you for your contribution to this space, to my life, and to Black Joy, and to always uplifting not only Black men, but as I say often, we can walk and chew gum at the same time, and lifting Black women as well. And so I appreciate you, sir. And we're going to jump right to the video. And I will go ahead and let you out the room, even though a couple of brothers was like he needs to stay, but we'll go ahead and let you go, sir.
All right, brothers. And congratulations to the Kings, and I look forward to listening to all they have to offer.
Thank you. And here we are with the Black Joy presentation, pictures taken by Thaddeus Miles and put together by Out the Box Agency.
Joy, joy, God's great joy. Joy, joy, down in my soul. Sweet, beautiful, soul saving joy, oh joy, joy in my soul.
They say joy cometh in the morning, but that's contingent upon if you can keep your faith through the night. It's taking the lows with the highs, finding flight after a fall. It's the hypotenuse of hope, dividing peaks from valleys. It's your ability to soar over the storm like an eagle. Joy is learning to dance with both dusk and dawn. It's the parting of clouds making way for a rainbow, baby. It's sunshine after a long New England winter. It's seeing the icy lady on Martin Luther King Boulevard, a sure sign of summer. Joy is a Black boy's smile. It's murals that breathe life into the hood. It's kids blowing bubbles in needle-free parks. Radical joy be revolutionary. It's celebrating 10 days of sobriety. It's being brave enough, bold enough, Black enough to go underground for freedom. It's putting joy on the Black market, making it affordable. It's making our African ancestors accessible. Joy is painting the city red, black, and green. It's sisters sage in the street. Joy isn't gentrification. It's Nuestra helping to keep Nubians and Nubians square. It's going beyond our cliche terms of equity, diversity, and inclusion. Joy is a sacred circle. It's a hip-hop cipher. It's a Black man's praying hands. It's learning to thrive instead of just survive. It's holding on to life. Joy is that teen that rethinks suicide. It's that mother who mourns but still believes in miracles. It's finding your laugh after loss. It's healing after harm. Joy is the brother of sorrow. It's a warm embrace after abandonment. It's learning to trust your discernment. Joy is the essence of forgiveness. It's undeserved grace on bended knee. It's a brother's head nod or handshake, squashing decades of block-to-block beef. Joy is resilient. It's restorative justice. It's that little Black girl who looks in the mirror and sees herself as a city councilor, congresswoman, or the future mayor. It's warrior women in Washington politics, fighting for beads, braids, cornrows, and afro puffs, changing policy so that our children can graduate with their natural hair. Joy is progress after all this protest. It's us embracing this historic moment. And I know that they say that joy cometh in the morning, but dare I say it, joy be blacker than night.
Joy.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Ashley Rolls and a piece put together, curated by Thaddeus Miles. And he, sorry that you're still there, Unc. I know you was going to be in the background, but thank you so much for doing that piece there. And we appreciate you, sir. We're going to go ahead and take him out and get ready to bring our guest in the room. You all can keep on clapping. I'm just going to go ahead and begin to bring them in around that piece of Black joy that was just amazing. Just amazing. And I thought it was important that we talk about Black joy this evening in the context of what we are discussing, being a Black man in America. And what we're going to do today, we're only going to hold you until about 9 p.m. Some of these men have families and children and jobs to get to, but I've been dealing with trying to curate this conversation for a few months now and thought it was important that we come and talk about the experience. Before we do that, we just wanted to acknowledge and hold space for all lives that have been lost due to COVID, lives that have been lost to violence, and most recently in the world that so many people have come together in a sense of humanity around those that are fighting in the Ukraine. And so we want to hold space and keep them in our thoughts and prayers as well. And so we're going to jump right in and begin. I'm going to ask these brothers to introduce themselves by the order that they're appearing on my screen. And what they're going to do is introduce themselves, tell us about 30 seconds of what they do, and they're going to end their introduction, as we often do in the Java Cafe, with one word, but this time they're going to describe their experience either on a micro personal level or what they observe as their demographic as a Black man. And so I'm going to start with Brother Larry Carter, who is with us from Atlanta. And if you don't mind saying, where you also introduction, but where you're joining us from today, that would be great. Larry, we'll start with you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I thank you for having me. I am Larry Carter. I am located in Atlanta, Georgia. I am a community organizer, a community builder. I also work for the Census Bureau, helping underserved communities understand data. I think that's the way we're going to change and have progress, is really using data-driven approaches. And the one word that I would say describes my experience would be divided.
Divided. Larry, thank you for that. And I'm going to take notes just so I can stay up to date here. And right after Larry, I see good friend and brother Emerson Foster from the Black Men's Dinner Group, and just a good brother. Please introduce yourself as well, sir.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Great to be with you. My name is Emerson Foster. I guess in my day job, I lead HR for a large pharmaceutical company, Takeda Pharmaceuticals, in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I'm coming to you from Lynn, Massachusetts, my hometown of Lynn. And also I've helped to start a networking group for men of color that's been running, plus 20 years now. And the word that I would choose, I think, really aligns with the work that I've been doing with the Men's Dinner Group. The word I would choose is disconnected. I think as a group, as men, we're not as connected as we need to be. So that's the word I would choose.
Thank you, Brother Emerson. We're going to come right back with you. He is listed here on as Brother Joseph Bennett, but he said it's okay for me to call him by his nickname, and that is our brother Yard Time, a great and good brother doing powerful testimony and doing some great things in the community as far as mental health. Brother Joseph, and then we can jump into Yard Time. Go ahead and introduce yourself, sir. Good to have you in the room.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here, first and foremost. Joseph Bennett from Boston, Mass., Director of Yard Time Entertainment. We're a reentry program. We deal with the returning citizens that come home from the Massachusetts penal system. I'm a former convicted felon, so I serve the community that I was just leaving. And thank you very much for having me. And
your one word, sir, how would you describe the experience of Black men in America today?
Trauma.
Sir. Next on my screen is our brother, David Halpert. If you could introduce yourself as well, and enjoying the new haircut, sir, and end as well with your one word.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jimmy. Really appreciate it. And thank you so much for allowing me to be part of this panel. Once again, David Halbert. I'm speaking to you here from my home in Dorchester, and I am so many things. I am a husband. I am, most importantly, a father to two beautiful little Black girls. And I am known to some folks here in the Boston area as a former candidate for Boston City Council at large, where I ran last year, and looking forward to a new opportunity that'll get started next month. But that'll be another episode, Jimmy. Don't worry about that. But most importantly, the thing that I think of when I think of the experience of myself and so many other Black men, the one word that I would use is truly, it's uphill.
Uphill. Thank you, sir. And certainly last but not least, he is our resident clergy in the room. So he understands that the first shall be last and the last shall be first. I may be a little rusty there, but our good friend and brother, Brother Reverend Delegate Joshua Cole, please introduce yourself, greet the people, and give us your word as well.
Well, good evening. I'm so excited to be here with you all. My name is Joshua Cole. I am a local community activist, a former state representative, an ordained priest, and I'm just excited to be here with everybody. I think my word for tonight would be numb. Just looking at everything that Black people have been facing, especially our males, and what we're dealing with right now, many of us are just left numb right now.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. And I'm going to do my best not to call you Father Cole, Brother Josh. And so I'm going to mix it up as far as the order that I went around. And Brother Emerson, I'm going to come back to you and ask you, why did you pick the word disconnected? You gave a little bit of context, but give us about 3 minutes of why you picked that word disconnected when we talk about Black men in America.
Yeah. I mean, I think, as I was thinking of the word, is I actually settled on a lot of, what I would say positive words, right? I think there's a lot of power within our community. And I think our power is unrealized in many ways because we don't coalesce around, in a collective way in support of each other. And, oftentimes I always use the analogy, if you and I go into a restaurant and we see Larry and Brother Joshua, but we don't know them, we may give them a head nod and keep it moving. And not knowing that there's what we've left there, what we've left on the table in that relationship that we gave up is there may be a job for my son on that table, right? There may be entrance to a school that, Brother Joshua may be connected to on that table. And the next man, when they go to the country club and they saddle up next to the bar, next to, one of their contemporaries at the bar, they're getting their daughters that internship. They're getting them into that school, and we're not doing that enough for each other. And so the dinner group was really started to do just that, to get us in a room so that we can connect and have relationships that we could then leverage in support of each other. I would have never met Brother David probably if not for that medium, right? We would have been two ships passing. And Boston, as you know, is notorious for that, man. We're in our cliques, we're in our own communities. We're in our cliques from street to street, organization to organization. We got to break down those walls, man. So, I just feel we need to connect better so that we can harness that power to support each other.
Brother Emerson, we'll make sure we get the information from you about the dinner group. And I know with COVID, you've had to kind of adjust and do some things, but
March, we're coming back live in March. So
you heard it here first.
Stay tuned for that.
Okay, absolutely. And David, I did not miss that there's an announcement coming from you as well. But Larry, Emerson referred to in Boston, and Boston is notorious for a few things, and you move in politics, but you use the word divided. Emerson said disconnected. And so first, if I could ask you to sort of start off with, is it the same experience in Atlanta when it comes to the example that Emerson made, or is it just here in Boston?
Yes, I think here in Atlanta, we have a similar experience where like ships passing in the night, there's power in numbers. And the reason I said divided is because we focus on how we're different opposed to how we are all Black men. Since I was 6, I knew that I looked different and I was different because every person pointed that out to me, for me, throughout my experience. My mom made sure I went to a all African-American elementary school, but I was still an outcast there because I was too light. So then it was like, you don't belong here, but I'm just as Black as you are. And when I walk into a white space, they don't see a light-skinned Black person. They just see a Black person. And that's what and then layering on that I'm a queer Black man, which I don't hide that either. In spaces that I go into, I know that I hold a lot of privilege because I have what is called straight privilege, where people who interact with me assume that I'm straight, so they treat me the same they would treat any other straight person. Whereas I have brothers and sisters who don't have that same quote unquote privilege, even though they're being their authentic selves. They're shut out of spaces, opportunities, by people who look just like us. And that's where the divided piece comes in, because it's like, as a unit, when we are all strong, we're even stronger as a people. And that's what our counterparts do, is they build each other up so that they're all, I mean, when we talk about white people, when we talk about Jewish people, when we talk about Irish people, you know, they build together while we take, unfortunately, sometimes we look at our differences and click up with people who are more like us, but we're all Black. We all have these similar experiences. You know, I've gotten bad service at restaurants. I've got followed around in stores. You know, I've been denied for loans in the past. So all of these same things that my brothers are going through, I go through too, even though there might be nuanced differences, but we're all Black.
I, I love that we're all Black. We're all Black. And I like the analogy that you gave. And it's often a joke. And I posted a picture recently, and the brother was joking. And I knew he meant it, but he was trying to say, you know, light skin is back in. And so we, you know, talk a little bit about that too here and there. But what you named brings a lot of trauma with it. And I'm going to go to Brother Yard Time. And that was your word, Brother Yard Time. You used the word trauma. And so he's smiling because he says Joseph, but I can call him Yard Time. But trauma. Talk to us about trauma, either from Larry's perspective of what he mentioned, or even your own, or the brothers that you work with. We know that you hold a weekly mental health space. And so talk to us as to why you said trauma when it comes to being a Black man in America, sir.
Well, my trauma started early on in my childhood, 1989, where there was a situation that took place in Boston where, you know, my uncle was falsely accused of it. And, you know, I never seen so many police in my life. And from that trauma, from that situation, that was my first interaction with trauma. But of course, back then I didn't know it was trauma. You know, I was only 14 years old, 15 years old. So I didn't know it was trauma. I just knew it was what was going on was like, wow, a lot of things happening out here. And as time went on, it turned me bitter, anger towards people. I didn't trust a lot of people. And as I grew up and I was getting into being in the streets, I inflicted trauma on people. I inflicted trauma in places and things. So, you know, I've never understood the word trauma until I started dealing with mental health issues and realizing that I had a lot of unresolved trauma to deal with. And a lot of us Black men have unresolved trauma that we have to deal with, you know, to dispel that myth of Black men don't want to be in no mental health counseling. So what I did was create a group of Black men formerly incarcerated that used to could sit down in a group inside a prison and earn 2.5 days good time to get out. But I told them we got to save our lives out here, so we need to sit down and have a group. And that started in December 14th. And ever since that day, we had 10 to 15 brothers that show up in person and some more on Zoom that come and get this mental health piece and deal with their trauma.
Yard Time, thank you. And it's so, you all are making this those some heavy topics. You're making it easy for me as far as your words and transitioning. And so Brother Josh, you use the word, and Dave, thank you for being willing to be last this time. Brother Josh, you used the word numb. Brother Larry kind of introduced it, and Yard Time took it to a different perspective. And I'm sure Emerson has had his, you know, dealings with different issues. And so when you say the word numb, sir, what is the context to that as being a Black man in America?
Yeah, I think I'm hearing, you know, the culmination of what everyone has been saying tonight. And I think back, you know, just 2 years ago when we were dealing with, you know, George Floyd, we had been sick and tired of being sick and tired of the police shootings. I don't even have to talk about what it meant to be a Black police officer during all these times as well. And so and then on top of the mental health thing as well, we are supposed to be, you know, we're taught as Black men that we got to be tough, we got to be hard, you don't cry, you don't do any of that. And so during this whole process, everyone was trying to hold it together. You had fathers and uncles and pastors and community leaders who could not express themselves and utilize their emotions to talk about how we really felt. And then it just had a pimple head, if you will, for a lack of better terminology, over that summer. I saw Black police officers crying in the streets, white police officers chasing after the protesters and black police officers just throwing down their guns and walking away. I saw legislators who were just walking off the legislative floor because they were tired of what people who didn't understand what it meant to be a black man in America coming back at us with their rhetoric. And so now we're at this point where just black men are just numb. You know, we've done all we can, we've tried what we can, and it's like people aren't listening, people aren't hearing us. And now we're just like walking zombies. We're just out here, we're existing, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, but we're just numb to everything around us.
Dave, with everything that has been said, it sounds definitely, sir, like an uphill battle where we're constantly pushing and we're constantly, you get to one point and what is it? Sometimes you get one step ahead and then it feels like you're going 2 steps backwards. And so your word was uphill based on everything that you heard so far. Why did you, well, not based on what you've heard, but bring into context what you've heard along with why you picked that word uphill.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think the reason I use the word uphill is because we are constantly and consistently and have historically consistently faced challenges because we know we are never getting the same shake. We are never on equal footing. We are always being put towards the back of the line, pushed for whatever reason. Sometimes it's because, to Emerson's point, Larry's point, the things that we are doing internally to each other or not engaging and connecting with each other. And there's so many things, so many outside pressures that are going. And it starts at an early age. You know, to hear Yartan talk about that experience, that trauma that he felt at such a young age at 14. But you know what? I would guess and I would put out there that he probably experienced significant trauma before that. And once again, just didn't have the language to talk about it, because when you're a child and you're in a classroom and people are saying, oh, you're acting out, you need to be taken out for a moment, you need to be put aside, you can't be in here learning with all the other kids because you can't control yourself. We know what that really is, and we know what that tracks back to. That's trauma. When we have individuals in a political space like here in Boston, or what we just saw in San Francisco, where we have elite high schools where our folks and our young men can't even get their foot in the door, and people are more concerned about fighting among who's making those decisions rather than making better decisions to open those doors and bring more folks back in. You're talking about being uphill. When you talk about the fact that we have more black and brown men inside incarcerated than we do, you know, coming out and being consistently pushed through our system for graduation at our colleges and universities, we're talking about uphill. When we're talking about the fact that excellence for us, particularly in professional situations, is almost akin at times to isolation, as if we can't all succeed, as if we have this crab in the bucket mentality that we're pulling one another down for whatever reason. It is uphill. So when I bring up the word uphill, when I use that to define the situation that so many of us are finding ourselves in, is because we know that we are constantly and consistently fighting ahead. And the only way, to the point that was made at the beginning of this part of the conversation, that we are going to get up is if we start extending hands downhill and pulling people back up with us. If we don't, we're just going to keep going up, rolling that rock up the hill and watching it roll right back down on top of us.
Dave, thank you. Brother Josh, I'm going to come to you in 1 second as I try to mix up the order here to be fair to everyone. So, Brother Yartan, when Dave talks about reaching the hand back, you could have came home, got yourself settled, and do what you needed to do for Yartan. Why was it important to you, sir, to reach back, as Dave said, and pull in? And let's talk a little bit, and I'm getting ready to kind of open it up too, but why was it important for you to reach back and pull others up the hill when it comes to mental health?
Well, because I know I sat in these places with some of these guys. I served 22 years for murder I didn't commit. So when I got a chance to get to know some of them guys, of course, we bonded. Some of our friendships is longer in there than it was out here. So when we came out here, they used to call me and say, how do you adapting so fast? How do you adapt so easily? I told them I haven't adapted yet at all. I'm just adjusting as it go on. So when David speak about uphill, you know, that's what we've been dealing with. We on the ground. We have an uphill fight. We in the community, you know. And then when I had to hear a phone call from someone that was out here, go back, and then they say I couldn't adjust to it. Like, that's why I said, okay, I can't let another one go back. So let me reach down, as you would say, and pull somebody up. You know, we didn't have that. So I had to make that happen. I don't want no more phone calls. I'd rather them call me over here than to be calling me collect.
Yes. That if you did not get that, that means from calling him from within. Brother Josh, Dave, and I want to come back a little bit to what Yard Time said in a few minutes, but Brother Josh, Dave mentioned that, you know, the political scene here in Boston, Emerson referred to Boston being notorious for clicks or whatever. I interviewed both of you in your races, and there were similarities. David mentioned that there were a couple of folks that he sent his application to. They didn't even respond. Brother Josh, you were an incumbent and got replaced by a white male. So, sir, can you just talk a little bit about the politics? And Brother Larry Emerson, I'm going to come back with some thoughts or questions from you. And then we're just going to open it up and have a Yard Time type of brother conversation here. And let's just really have some open type of convo. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting as we're talking about Black men in politics. You know, normally when I'm out knocking doors and I'm talking to people, even though I'm not an elected official right now, we got midterm elections. So I'm helping our brand new congresswoman hold on to her seat. And, you know, we hear a lot of people who say, oh, I'm not that interested in politics. I don't have time for it. And typically that's the way the system is supposed to be working. You know, the people who are working class, who have too much going on, they're not supposed to have representation. But one thing I always tell people, and I think I might have said this when I was on your show, that your landlord cares about politics, and that's how they keep your rent high. Your boss cares about politics, and that's how they keep your pay low. Your insurance cares about politics, and that's how they keep your premiums high. And so all of these things that are going on around you cares about politics while you're not caring, which affects your life. And so we have to begin to invest in our political power. And I love the words that I'm hearing tonight of us coming together, us being unified. What Larry said, regardless of who I love, what I look like, where I worship, we're all Black. We need to pull our power together in these communities and make sure that our voices can shift and change legislation. Just like what just happened here in Virginia. I know my time is running short, but Virginia technically is a blue state. But we had a clean red sweep this past election. And we're watching now how our governor is pushing for ending CRT. Critical race theory is not being taught in our schools. I sat on the House Education Committee. I know for a fact, and I was in the public school system as a worker. So I know for a fact it's not being taught. They're talking about pushing back on the voting rights that we've done. They just killed down a constitutional amendment to institute automatic restoration of rights. And Black people, we have to mobilize, because if we don't, while we're not caring, they're coming for every right that we have.
Sir, and one would think that knowing Brother Larry's experience, I would go to him, but I'm going to mix it up a little bit and come to Brother Emerson. Based on what Brother Josh just said about, and you talked about connectivity and the intentionality of bringing brothers together. So let's kind of shift a little bit before we go into the open convo. Based on what Brother Josh said about our collective power and connectivity, before I used to say that post George Floyd, we had this proverbial window that was open, that Black America and Black folks could get in America whatever we wanted. Different legislatures were open. Do you think that based on what Josh said and the need for more connectivity, have we missed that opportunity yet?
Yeah, that's, you know, I fear that, you know, the impact hasn't been as significant as we would have liked to have seen it be, right? Because ultimately, yeah, there was a lot of, you know, the groundswell and the movement at the time, and, you know, all this money is being committed by all these corporations, and we're going to do X, Y, Z. We're going to bring about equity in this area and that area. And when you take stock, you know, some 19, 20 months later, you're like, okay, what's really happened? And what Brother Josh has mentioned in the political realm, and what's happening with some of our rights that are being kind of, you know, chipped away in just about every state in the country. You know, all the gains that we think that we have seen, there's also a movement over here to kind of water those things down. So, you know, you have to be really broad in your thinking, in your focus, and understand the totality of what's happening, you know, kind of in the public space at the moment. And every inch you may get here, you may be taken, to Brother David's point, 2 steps backward over here. So oftentimes, because we're just in our own little silos, we may not be able to see over the wall to see what's happening over there. And I think that's where the connectivity comes in, to really engage each other, to get a better understanding. I'm not deep into politics. I'd love to really connect with Brother Josh and get better perspective on some things. I don't really, that's not really my movement per se. I understand it. I try to connect to it. I certainly, vote and use my, God-given rights where that's concerned. But we have to allow brothers like Joshua, David, and others who bring strong voices in this area, in these areas and other areas, whether it be in corporate, pursuits, whether it be in restorative pursuits. Let those brothers lift those brothers up so they can shine, so they can bring the rest of the community along, because they're kind of out here. Yard Time's out here is pulling yeoman's work, and he's doing it, by himself, not just by himself, but this is one man out here moving mountains. And imagine if he could get, some 10, 15 other brothers to really kind of get behind him to kind of push that rock up the hill. I just think that's where the collectivity comes in. And I think as a community, we're so much better together, man. And there's so much strength here. And you listen, let me just, last thing I'll say, you can take a playbook from these Republicans, man. I'm sorry, I hate to get political, man, but listen, they don't play, man. They're on one track and they don't deviate off that track. And as a community, I feel like we have to get on our track and don't deviate off that track. We just got to get on that track. We don't, we're on disparate tracks, and we just got to, we got to pull it all together and kind of get under one umbrella. So,
to that point right there, Brother Emerson. Thank you, Brother Larry. We're talking about politics, so I'm gonna let you kind of wrap up that point there. Brother Yard Time, I'm going to to you, and then Brother Dave. And so based on what you just heard, Brother Larry, and moving in the space you move in, how important is it that we pay attention to policy and legislation? And Yard Time, I'm going to come to you and talk about how what Brother Emerson mentioned would look like. And we've named the issues, and now I want us to start talking about, like, how do we fix the division? How do we become more connected? How do we address our trauma? How do we bring other people up the hill with us, and kind of level it out through equity, so we don't wind up being so numb? I think I put that together well. So Brother Larry, politics, Brother Yard Time, I'm going to come to you, and then Brother David, and then we're going to open it up and just let you guys talk.
Yeah. So the funny thing is, here in Atlanta, I had the same situation. I ran for city council in the city of Atlanta, and there were places that didn't even, review my application because they already had their decisions. So what you said is, we have to not just pay attention to the politics, but we also have to pay attention to where we put our money, because there are companies that are moving people in to do their work. So these people might look like you or might not. But you have to listen to where they're coming from. Are they a part of your community? Do they know what your community needs? Like, really understanding who these people are and who is standing them up, looking at funding, because a lot of times businesses will fund a certain candidate because they already know in the future you're going to return the favor by voting on this for me. And that's how politics works. And we really need to deconstruct that if we really want real representation. Another piece is, it has to move past activism and be action. We have to have actionable steps, because a lot of times we'll march and we'll do all of these things, but what's the ask? We have to make sure that we get together and come together and figure out, what do we want in return? Because a march is nothing more than a parade without an ask. If you're not sure, if you think back to the civil rights movement, Dr. King and the whole group had their ask, and when they wouldn't be met with their ask, then they would march to get that ask met. We've kind of fallen out of that, so we got to know our history to figure out how we can move forward in a productive way together, if that makes sense.
It makes a whole lot of sense. And again, you're kind of making it a little bit easy for me to come into Brother Yard Time, and based on what you just said and Brother Emerson said, Yard Time, what does being connected, what does not being divided look like in the context of the brothers that you serve and deal with, as we get ready to get brothers on a track of coming together and getting towards solutions? And then after Brother Yard Time, y'all can just chime in and respond.
So you know me, I like to answer directly and differently than what anybody anticipates. That would mean saving my daughter's lives, saving your kids' lives, because half of the kids that are out here right now are not connected to anyone. And they're just running around shooting, stabbing, killing all day long. So if we can get some of these kids some of the help, some of the mental health trauma that they dealing with, start them out early, and then we can be the role models for them, because I've already done most of the things they're doing. And I know there's only two places you going: jail or death, you know. And then you take your family on both sides. So now you're taking them to the grave with you because they're heartbroken. Then you're taking this one to the jails with you because they got to pick up your calls all day. You know, so my thing is, if we help each other, I'm not an expert in this. I just experienced this. I just started dealing
That
with
makes you an expert, but that makes you.
I just started dealing with my mental health in 2016 while incarcerated, when I almost had a breakdown because I didn't know if I was ever going to get out of jail. I was serving life. So mentally, I was in a place where I was like, I can't lose it in jail, because I done seen so many other people losing in jail because they were innocent, trying to come home, but then get out. And I was vowed not to be one of those guys. And I decided if I talk to someone in the jail, they might not be ready. So I need to talk to professional help, because they can give me better answers than my friends. My friends going, man up. Like you said, man up, man, man up. You're going to be all right. Nah, not this time.
I appreciate your transparency, Brother Yard Time. And the last thing, and then we'll open it up. Brother David, I'll ask you to respond to that, and then we'll open it up. That way I got everybody equal time, and now we can open it. But Brother Yard Time, what I heard from you was, despite everything you've been through, and I hear street cred from you and whatnot, you're an advocate for therapy. Like therapy can help Black men.
Yes. Yes.
I see a lot of head shaking here.
I'm certain. Look, I'm with my group. We're searching for male facilitators. Emerson helped me. He introduced me to someone. So I'm just looking for someone that's, you know, we're a nonprofit. We haven't raised a lot of money. So I'm looking for pro bono, somebody that's willing to help us. Because honestly, the people that are in my group at one time were some dangerous people in the city of Boston.
Sir.
We carry weight in that group. We can change some lives. We don't have the help. We've been doing this all by ourselves. And that's what it is. Nobody's reaching down. You know, I come with a bad name. I had a bad reputation back in the past, but nobody's trying to understand I got a second chance. I'm making a difference. And I'm bringing a lot of the guys that had the same reputation with me along so they could help me make a difference as a crew, as a gang, as a different people, grown men.
Gentlemen, y'all jump in.
Jimmy, if I could, you know, one thing, and I want to just build a little bit off what Yard Time was saying. I think that there's a real unfortunate parallel between some of the stigma that we put on mental health and seeking mental health services and opening up, being vulnerable in those spaces, right? And that comes from a long history of a survival mechanism for our people in a lot of different contexts. But we also, you know, we all grew up in homes. We all know you keep your business out the street. Right.
What goes on at home stays at home. What
right?
goes on in this house stays in this house. I think that's that's the exact words.
Exactly. But that's one of the things that inhibits us in so many different ways, because there are so many things that we as a community either don't talk about or gloss over that we need to wrestle with if we're going to be honest about it, if we're going to move forward. You know, we're talking about the experience of our members of our LGBTQIA plus community and the homophobia that they've often experienced and the exclusion that they've often experienced and being pushed out. If we talk about individuals who are coming home from incarceration and how they haven't been fully embraced by the totality of our community, because yeah, we're glad you're out, but are we really giving you the support that you need to make sure that you stay out? Are we supporting our kids? Are we doing so many other things that go back to those real intentional conversations, those difficult conversations? Are we talking about, you know, Larry, you made the comment at the beginning, and you know, I think it was both purposeful but has some just, right? That colorism conversation. that we really need to wrestle with. That conversation about, we've all probably experienced it and heard about it. I know here in Boston we do, about folks being told as they come in, as they immigrate from other parts of diaspora, don't mess with those American Blacks. They're trifling. They don't work. They don't hustle, right? Like we do. And I will tell you, one of the saddest things that I ever saw as a Black man here in the city was, I was online one day, I was on Facebook like people are, and I saw a brother that I got to know, like a Caribbean brother, good brother, and he had a whole post about how the Caribbeans were better, just straight up better than American Blacks. And it broke my heart. It broke my heart because here was this guy who had so much to give, so much that he could do, so much that he could contribute. And what he was using this platform for was tearing down people who were fighting the same fights in so many ways that he was, rather than building each other up. But we don't have those conversations because we don't want to, because we want to allow people to, and then complain about when people say, oh, you're acting like a monolith, right? We have to have these kind of intentional conversations if we're going to heal, and then if we're going to build and succeed.
I agree. Brother Larry, you would put your hand up, and then anyone else jump in, or your time if you want to respond.
I think for me, a sobering fact is my uncle spent 15 years in jail for a crime he didn't commit as well. So on this, out of the five of us, Brother Yartime said his uncle spent time in jail for a crime he didn't commit. He spent time in jail for a crime he didn't commit. And my uncle did too. So this is not something this is prevalent in our community, where our Black men are going to jail for crimes they didn't commit. So you're basically criminalizing poverty, because we don't have the money to get the best lawyer or get the best defense. We end up in jail, and you're taking our lives away, productive years of our lives. And that's something that stood out to me and resonated with me throughout this.
Thank you. Brother Emerson.
Yeah, the thing that just comes to mind with everything that we're talking about is, it could really seem like it's such a road to travel, man. You think of all the things that David just mentioned and what Larry just mentioned. I mean, it could be really overwhelming thinking about how do we tackle all of that. And I advocate we're all doing things that I think are very, very positive that advance our community. And I think that's where it starts. Like literally, man, I think big, but I also think small. Like, that young man, how does he see me? How does he see me living my life? How does he see me with my kids? How does he see me with my wife? And hopefully that then, that role model that Thaddeus talked about, all of us really doing these things and being front and center so our community can understand that we got brothers who are just doing some great things in our community. And I think it's, our young folks have to be able to see it. They have to be able to connect with us so that they can then say and make choices. Because right now, many of them, like Yartai mentioned, listen, they only have one or two choices, and they're not good. Their role models are folks that they shouldn't be looking to, in all honesty, quite possibly. And so, how do we balance that view for our youth? And I think this is how we do it. It's each of us do what we can do. Listen, I can't tackle the issue of poverty. That construct is something that's bigger than just any one of us, right? I can't tackle the issue of colorism. It's bigger than any just one of us. Yes, let's talk about it. Let's have the discussions. But at the same time, what can we do in our own kind of local level, right? In our own world to present, this positive, powerful change agent that I think each one of us can be, and show that to our youth. Because ultimately, I think that's what's going to allow for us to kind of be in a better position the next generation that's following,
I do. Brother Emerson, if not to put words in your mouth, but I heard a little bit of individual responsibility.
Oh, there's no question.
I see head shaking. Brother Josh, you look like you were next, and then we're going to, y'all just go. I'll just sit back because y'all making this easy as far as how the conversation is flowing. Brother Josh.
No, I do agree. As we're, one of the things I think, and you hear it all the time, where the other side will push back on us and say, stop playing the victim mentality. You have this victim mentality about what you're doing. There's some truth to that. there are some things that we're dealing with that we have no control over because of what was laid in place for us.
That's right. That's right.
But there are some things that we do have control over. If we have things that we can do, whether it's going to see a psychologist or a therapist, whether it's making sure we're talking to our children's educators and being involved in what they're dealing with, talking to the school board rep, talking to whoever in the community to make sure we understand what's happening with our children in school, why they're coming home acting up when we know they don't act up at home, or why they are acting up at home and then going to school and acting up in school too. I think we all have the ability to take that personal responsibility to take a look into things and deal with them.
Thank you. Thank you. There was somebody else that was, I seen Yard Times, Mike. If not, I'll call on somebody.
Yeah, no, let me just say to Brother Joshua's point. I mean, when my son was young, I want to know who his friends are. And if his friends ain't right, he ain't going to be friends with them. Peace, right? And so that's the personal responsibility. We can't allow the society or what's outside the front door control how we govern our families, our kids, our community at large. We can't allow for that, right? And oftentimes I think we're very it's interesting. It is an individual responsibility, Jimmy. But at the same time, we have to take that individualism and channel it into things that are positive. This time, too often we're taking that individual focus, and it's really just about us. Is what I can get, how I can make it wherever I need to make it, and whomever else gets kind of knocked over in that pursuit, or whomever else I don't reach back and pull up, so be it. I got mine, right? And so, let's take that individual pursuit, but really do it for the collective good.
Absolutely. And I just looked up and I did not realize it's 8:54. So we're going to have to do this again. I got a few calls from some brothers that want to be a part of this. And so we're going to have to do this again. And so what I'm going to do is ask you to, and we got on this track. We were starting to talk about, we were talking about solutions. We talked about individual responsibility and it not being for our own, what some old folks will call filthy lucre, for our own gain, but individual responsibility for the greater community. Yard Time talked about having things. Well, he mentioned our brothers coming back, but I think it was David that talked about we want them home, but do we really have the resources in place to make sure they stay home? And so what I'm going to get ready to ask you guys to do, and I'll go a little bit, let me see, who should I start with? Brother Joseph, I'm going to get ready to ask you to give final remarks. And in your final remarks, and I didn't put this in our notes, but off the top of your head, a successful, wonderful experience of a Black man in America, sir, what does that look like? If you could design it for
Obama. Barack Obama.
You just made hey, that's not fair. You just come on, man. I need at least a couple of seconds. No. But why do you say that for real?
I mean, from where I was sitting at, all I did was just watch TV, watch the news, and all I could do was just hope and pray that somebody would win that was Black, that could be us, that could represent us, that could explain to America some of the things that we went through. Because we don't get that, not on the stage of that format, not in that particular thing. I don't ever think we're going to get another Black one. But, at the same time, for me, that's who it was. Of course, Jay-Z, because he's the ultimate hustler. He went from the projects. That's where I'm from, a project. I mean, can't go wrong with that. So I looked for people like that in my own neighborhoods. Guys like John Jackson, Terrence Williams, these guys all helped me from when I was a kid. I just was a knucklehead and wasn't listening to nothing they said because I thought I knew it all. Until the judge said life in prison, then I realized I didn't know anything. Because I didn't even know the law to fight.
And so you work now to when brothers come home to address their mental health so they don't have to go back. A couple of folks have asked, and I'll figure out how to do it, Miss Teresa. But a couple of folks have asked how to support the organizations. And so we'll make sure we get that information out there. I'm going to go up and down. Brother Larry, closing remarks, sir. What does an ideal experience for a Black man in America look like for you?
For me, an ideal experience looks like access to opportunity. access to upward mobility, access to care for his family in a positive way. All of those things look like a positive experience.
As a Black man in America. Thank you, sir. Brother David, what for you? What does it look like, sir?
Yeah, positive experience, ideal experience for a Black man in America for me is somebody who's fully healthy. That means physically healthy. That means mentally healthy. That means spiritually healthy, right? Someone who knows who they are, whose they are, where they are, who never forgets where they came from, never forgets where they're trying to get to, and never forgets the people that haven't gotten there yet that they can help, and the people that they need to be able to open up and ask for help in order to get there. So I think somebody who is truly a man who is truly and totally possessed of who they are and what they can do and understands what they can give back and seeks to give back, that's the ideal experience for me.
Brother Emerson, sir. Father Josh, get ready to close us, sir.
Simply, I mean, everything that David and Larry said, but just being free, man, to just move how you want to move, not worry about walking in a store, how you're going to be perceived. A country and a society that looks at you with the best intentions, right, and not with some of the negative perceptions that often are foisted upon our people. So it's just a more freer society, a more just society, and just being comfortable, man, and just being able to just move how we want to move.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Brother Josh, write the video, sir, and make it plain.
To me, a Black success story is, what everyone has already talked about, and making sure that you're pursuing what you want to pursue. What is your idea of success? And make sure you're obtaining them in, truthful, healthy, legal ways, and making sure no one is holding you back from the dream and the destiny that you see for yourself. And then we're not stepping over each other. We're encouraging each other and pushing each other to pursue each other's destinies as well.
Gentlemen, one, I can't believe the hour went by as quick as it did. Two, I appreciate all of you. We're going to have to do an iteration of this again, and I'll mix it up with a couple of new folks and a couple of folks that are here. The intentionality around this conversation on a national level was to show all of you that you are not alone, show all of you that are watching that you're not the only one dealing with it. But then also, as we wrapped up, we cast a vision about what our experience looks like. And also, we did hear this piece about individual responsibility, though understanding that there are some circumstances and systems and structures that are set up that won't let us do that. But it does not mean that we don't work to be, I'm moving stuff here, we don't work to be more connected, that we have to work to come together and be less divided. We have to deal with our trauma so we don't become numb. And though it's an uphill battle, we always have to turn around and reach back, and each one, teach one, and reach one. So I want to thank all of you for coming in this evening. And for those of you that watched, there will be some action after this. I can feel it. I'm sure a couple of these brothers are going to connect and build. And so thank all of you for watching this evening. And we will be doing this again next month. We're going to do Black Women in America because it is Women's History Month for March. And so we're going to do that. And so thank you all again for, and Brother Emerson, please let the wife know I'm going to be reaching out to her because I want the other foster to come to that one. And so thank you all again. And Yard Time, I'll make sure that Ms. Teresa has the information to support the organization. And thank all of you. And that's it for us this evening. Thank you all very much for tuning in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
No man behind.
All right, Yard Time, I'm about to text you. All right, y'all. Thank you.